Respected horror director Osgood Perkins was asked about Netflix's true crime empire, and he didn't hold back his criticism of TV mega-producer Ryan Murphy, who has built a career on what Perkins sees as exploiting the real pain of others. Perkins is the son of actor Anthony Perkins, who is, of course, best known for his role playing Norman Bates in Psycho. Joey Polari portrays the late Anthony Perkins in Monster, the Ed Gein story, Murphy's latest miniseries glamorizing a real serial killer. TMZ asked the younger Perkins about the portrayal of his dad and the extensive liberties taken with the show's depiction of his father. It's that disrespect for his father that prompted Perkins to confirm that he wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. He then went on to share his distaste for how Netflix and Murphy have handled true crime and for their pattern of turning real pain into glamorous and meaningful content. He noted that these true crime miniseries are increasingly devoid of context and that the Netflixization of real pain, i.e. the authentic human experiences wrought by actual events, is playing for the wrong team. Ryan Murphy has built an empire on romanticizing serial killers, and been called out for it. Clearly, Perkins is not a fan of the way Ryan Murphy's shows fetishize serial killers, and he's right. Murphy is a legitimate power player in Hollywood, but while he originally made his name with Glee and American Horror Story, the empire he's built on Netflix is one that has too often exploited the pain of real victims and their families by romanticizing real-life serial killers and other infamous criminals. The entirety of his career may not be built on a history of blood and bones, but a not insignificant part of it is. Even when it's not a story about a serial killer, Murphy doesn't exactly care about being faithful to the truth, whether in his depictions of historical events or of real people. Nor does he seem to mind when their families call him out for his indifference to the real trauma, pain, or loss they experienced. A few examples include, that's just the tip of the iceberg. The recurring theme has been that Murphy has consistently taken gratuitous liberties with real people and real stories to make his dubious depictions more glamorous and salacious, often suggesting things about the person's sexuality or character that simply aren't true. To some extent, that is the way of Hollywood. Real stories are always going to be adjusted for the sake of making a more captivating on-screen story. Yet most Hollywood creatives haven't built an empire on the continued exploitation of real human beings and their trauma. Most biopics or fictionalized versions of real-life events make a point of contacting the real people involved, whether to obtain their consent or to use them as consultants. Ryan Murphy's pattern of not contacting the families for their consent or input indicates that he has no intention of telling their stories truthfully, nor does he particularly care about the pain it might cause. Ryan Murphy's defense of his true crime shows never holds up. Custom image by Sarah Novak. Murphy's historical response to the valid concerns and criticism from families and victims has been to brush them off, if not mock them outright. In response to the Menendez family's criticism of Monsters, Murphy retorted that his show was the best thing that has happened to them in 30 years. At best, his mea culpas haven't offered genuine accountability or contrition, so much as sorry if you're offended. Murphy has regularly fallen back on the argument that his true crime shows are merely holding up a mirror to people and to society, via Netflix. The obvious, unspoken flaw with that argument, however, is that when the mirror is so warped and distorted that it doesn't come close to accurately reflecting real people, it ceases to be a tool for self-reflection and instead becomes one of creative exploitation. Yet, the framing of his work as a necessary social reckoning is wholly undermined by the ghoulish glee with which he depicts the work of serial killers in his trademark over-the-top, gratuitous style. In Monster, the Ed Gein story, for example, there's a brief scene of a dead woman strung up and slaughtered like an animal carcass. In the real world, that woman had a name. In Ryan Murphy's world, she's just a grotesque background prop.